Okay, hello. Hello everyone and welcome to Design Post. My name is Emma Lucek and I'll be your moderator today. Today we'll be talking about sustainability, and the theme of the talk is furniture ecologies, which, judging by the crowd and by this beautiful environment, actually affects us all in more than one way, not just from a design perspective, but also just as us as people. So I was telling Charlie this morning that even though I'm dressed like a scientist, I'm not actually a scientist. So my background is in design, not ecology or sustainability, but lucky for us and lucky for me, we're surrounded by experts, various facets of the design industry, from the manufacturing side, from the design side. So I think we're going to get a great deal of information sort of sucked out of their brains today. First of all, I think to start, it would be really great if I would introduce and hand a mic over to the sort of spearheads of why we're here, the people who've gathered us today. Let's start. Oh, so they're here. We've got, starting on this side, we've got Cecilia, Sebesta, Floor van Ast, and Charlie Blodel, and they're sort of the spearheads of this whole operation. Why not, Floor, you give us a little introduction about Design Post, and then Charlie and Cecilia will clue us into why we're here and why it's important. Yeah. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thank you for kicking off. Welcome all. Yeah, you're saying that we are kind of the reason, but I think the fact that we are all sitting here together is making it happen, and the actual reason. A little bit about Design Post. We started 15 years ago as a collective presentations. We have now 36 brands here as a showroom, and it's a year-round showroom for international brands. And we are further developing as Design Post more into a platform. I think a place to connect, to network, to learn, and I think this is one of the kind of an example the last 3 days, how different networks, brands, contributions from all partners come together. And this conversation series is for us also kicking off a new series where we try to learn as an industry through the different disciplines. And it started actually from conversations I had with Cecilia from Emeco. She will be introduced later on further, but I think this is what we would like to do as Design Post, kind of in conversations that we have with our partners to develop different formats to activate this beautiful environment all year round on topics that are relevant for all of us in the industry. And I think we are this intersection, we can be this connector and facilitate this. So it's also an invitation to take what we're doing here now today and the other days to take it to other locations and conversations, and in that sense expand.
Feel activated.
Activate.
Cecilia, do you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about the programming? I have two. Actually, you guys can speak together because it was really a dynamic duo.
Thank you. Well, it was actually a conversation 6 months ago or more, right? And I was kind of the devil's advocate in the conversation because I was questioning Design Post role in the future and asking why don't you take this beautiful space and make it into something like a knowledge hub for the industry. The background that is actually that we had a dinner in Stockholm just before the pandemic broke out, and the outcome of that dinner, we've been in the masterclass this afternoon, learning from experiences from that dinner. That was the outcome. People learned new things, got some new questions in their head, and started to think about, developing further into these questions, investigating, and also the fact that you shouldn't never underestimate small steps. Just by meeting, we were 25 people, and what kind of marks that makes. And if we can make meetings here, smaller groups, larger groups, that can really make a big, huge difference in this industry. We cannot start changing the whole world, but we are one industry and we make a lot of impact on the environment where people live. So I think it's a great opportunity and a fantastic place as Design Post to start. So that was kind of the kickoff, I guess, and it's been a fantastic journey. working with Flora and Charlie. It's fantastic, really, really fun.
Thank you, Cecilia. Yeah, as you say, it's been really a lot of conversations, and we are making baby steps as an industry. And one important element of making these steps is not to lose them as we come together in live events. We, of course, also want to capture everything we learn. We want to try and document the knowledge that we gather here in these very important meetings. So we are one crucial element is also to collect it in a go-to library. So we would like to welcome all of you, also our live audience online, to check our masterclass that we are putting online in our library of masterclasses on Design Post. And you will also be able to read back to what we have been talking about today and in the further sessions in our e-paper. And we hope you also listen back to one of these conversations that we're having today in our podcast, which is coming out in the next month, in the next days.
But this is just really the first out of 3, right?
This is the first.
Yeah,
this is
out of 3.
Indeed the first session of 3 that we're planning in the next months. So I think Emma's going to give a little introduction to the following sessions as well, right?
I made the first mistake of moderator. Never give away your mic. That's.
Are you sure? I can take over.
yeah. Charlie, listen to it. So, lost my train of thought. There we are. So, exactly. So, like you say, Cecilia, baby steps, and this is the first of 3, and probably more conversations that we'll be having over the next however long we're allowed to live. But the reason why the first one is called Transitions, should I be on the stage? Yeah, let's do that. The reason why this one is called Transitions is because we are, and in a lot of ways that you'll see through the speakers today, moving from an old way of thinking and processing into a new one. And that inevitably causes friction and tension and, people getting a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that's good. That's okay to be a bit uncomfortable and have these kind of conversations. And so this is a safe space. Don't mind the live feed. I would love for you to interact and ask a lot of questions, because that's also why we're here. I want to hear success stories, and I also want to hear about challenges, because this kind of transition doesn't come without challenges. Voila. So, as such, I'd like to introduce our first speakers. And we were speaking yesterday with Martin about how his title sounds so much cooler in German, but it's not going to happen. So, first of all, here we have Martin Beeh, who is the founder of CIDI, so the Cologne Institute of Design and Innovation. That's a mouthful. And he will be as well as the initiator of Material.Cologne, which is a conference also relating to process and innovation. And he will be speaking with Emma Olbers of Emma Olbers Design, sitting next to him. And Emma is a designer with a sharp focus on sustainability and product life cycles. So I'd like to welcome them both to the stage. I will have to give away my mic for this one. What is this? Let's give a round of applause. I have the clicker. Thank you. I'm handing over all the power. Look at this.
Thank you, Emma. You're very trustful.
Yeah, I know. You have 20 minutes.
I guess, this is on.
Okay, yeah, I think Emma and I, we're glad that we have you here around us in this lounge and wonderful Friday afternoon conversation. And we have been sitting together this morning already, getting really into the discussion, and we try to funnel that really into this coming up 20 minutes. So I'm really glad Emma and I can share a couple of experiences, convictions, and of course the thoughts, of all of you.
Yes. Me too.
Okay, let's get started. So, Emma, what have you been doing and what have you been about in the last 24 hours?
I'm, as Emma said, a furniture designer with a big interest and focus on sustainability. So I actually count my private carbon budget, and I wanted to keep it to 3,000 kilos per year. So I took the train here. So that's what I've been up to the last 24 hours, or not really 24 hours, but 16 hours.
Wow, courageous.
From Stockholm.
Yeah, I think it deserves an applause.
And one really strange or new information for me was that I read this new report from Sweden about furniture and how much they emit in general. And actually, a flight over here for me, back and forth, is 300 kilo. And a new sofa is 300 kilo. So if I wouldn't go here, or it's almost like throwing away a new sofa. And that's almost shocking for me.
Okay, so that's the comparison, not only where you hear 330 kilos of CO2 is as much as little, sounds a lot for human scale, but if you put that in relation to what else can it be, interesting.
Yeah, that is, I think when you could touch on something and see something, it's much easier to understand. So how did you get here?
Yeah, actually, I didn't spend 16 hours, despite the traffic in Cologne could also be quite tough. So I'm fortunate to live in Cologne. Also, Stockholm is a nice city, so it's glad we could meet here in Cologne.
Yeah.
I must say, to my defense, usually I take the bicycle in Cologne, but as Emma said, I'm also involved with materials and carrying, not 360 kilos or 330 kilos and not even a sofa with it, but still we have a considerable amount of materials and display, so I had to come with my car. It's still a petrol-based car. It's a big car. No, it's not an SUV, it's a small car, but I'm a sinner. But again, usually I take the bicycle.
Good.
So, and I love the trains. And by the way, the trains in Germany, they say that we are CO2 neutral. Maybe that's another question we can discuss later. So how can you fly, pay something, and then still be CO2 neutral?
Yeah, that's a
Some
question.
mathematic magic, probably.
Precis. Yes. So, Martin, you are experienced and worked a lot with material consultancy. Could you share one of your latest cases with us, or one case?
Yeah, I have some, and actually slightly influenced by my work in Sweden. The first slide is a refrigerator. It's a commercial refrigerator I designed 1999 in Stockholm. This is, by the way, this is maybe the product that is out on the market since the longest time. So 22 years, and I want to talk just briefly about longevity of industrial products. And that's a very local photo here. You see it's in Cologne, just outside the cathedral dome, for those who haven't been here yet. And it touches me when you see a product over time, over 2 decades, that is still alive. In Copenhagen at the train station it is, at IKEA it is. So it's something where you say a project has been out and used during this time.
For a very long time.
It touches me as a designer, and it's always, my background is industrial design. So architects have a responsibility, interior designers have a responsibility, but industrial designers, if you do something wrong with a serial product and you make a mistake, or even, don't consider the impact on the environment, it's tremendous. Here, I must say, I replaced, and you would really hit me hard probably on that, I replaced metal by plastic.
Yeah.
And even reinforced with fibers. The product was much lighter, so to the defense of that, and we could integrate much more functions to that.
Yeah, and the plastic was virgin. Or
polyamide,
new.
virgin polyamide
new.
with, I'm afraid, glass fiber. Very, very bad in terms of recycling. And blame me again, it was my idea to introduce that.
But it was 20 years ago.
Sorry?
But it was 20 years ago.
Exactly, it was 20 years ago, and later we will talk about the knowledge you have and the knowledge that you use for that. Maybe on the second one, it still remains in the area of cold. It's only 16 years old now. It's a wine keeper that I designed also during my activity at Electrolux and the design team. It's a wine keeper we came up, and it was with a nice factory team of Mariestad in Sweden. So we worked really jointly with the engineers. It's one of these super fantastic corporations. You as a designer with R&D, with marketing, you really develop this project together. And important was that it's a valuable product. A wine keeper is something that is usually at the high end of, let's say, the value range of refrigeration. And the material selection there was really kind of hand-picked. We discussed there some, for a fridge, quite unusual. You see this on the right, the parts of the wooden components.
Yeah.
The handle is in wood. And yeah, one of these fridges is still at my house. So we use it to store and then sometimes pick a nice bottle of wine from it. And it got also in 2005 the Red Dot Product Design Award. So maybe we catch up on this thing about design quality later.
Yeah.
So this is share some experiences, some sins I committed. Whereas I like today, I wouldn't do it again in plastic. But yeah, who knows?
Knows, yeah.
Yeah, Emma, you have been doing a lot of work as well during your career. So where are your cases which you like to share with us? Also your approach as a scientist, a researcher and a designer.
Yeah, not really a scientist maybe, but a designer, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to show a project where we actually had like a drink before that dinner 2 years ago. And I designed the interior for the, I think you have to jump 3 pictures. Yeah, I designed the library for the Swedish National Museum. That's perfect. And but it actually started out with me doing when I got that project, I felt that, oh, this is an opportunity to really show all the visitors at the hotel, at the museum how sustainable furniture looks like and what they feel like and how they age. But how to start? When I wanted to start that, I had to go back to an earlier exhibition I did on materials, and that exhibition, a Swedish company, the Environmental Institute, helped me rank the material I work with, and that you can see on that pictures. Yeah, the next one. So this company in Sweden, the Material Institute, helped me rank 10 of the materials I'm working with. And then I really learned that like birch is a low carbon material and leather is a high carbon material. And it's actually 300 times more leather than birch. So that's
impressive.
Yeah. So that's what helped me design and do all the choices at the library.
Okay. So how did your process then go, actually?
Yeah, we really wanted to work with mostly wood, and then I also worked with bamboo and seagrass. That is even lower. And I guess I'm supposed to do the next question.
Okay, no, perfectly fine. Do you want to share some more slides on the project with us?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, so you can see here.
Okay, now we see the beautiful work.
Yeah. And I actually put over there also some of the materials. And then you see all the library there. And it's some more pictures, actually.
Further?
Yeah. So it was mostly wood. And we actually used all wood or massive wood. So this is just one tree. And that's also, it's tencel in the carpet and seagrass in the chair. Yeah, so it's a lot of low carbon materials.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are on the picture, the low carbon materials. And here is also the library.
Yeah.
And a chair I did there also.
Okay, we take that up later, right?
Yeah, and this we take later. That's the next question.
Okay. Yeah, we have been talking about our work, and of course, I think professionals and as humans that grow, as a person, but also as professionals, what is your reflection? So what is your analysis? So what would you consider your achievements? How do you recognize them? What do people say? What feedback do you get? And what's the way ahead? So what do you take out of that analysis?
I think it's really hard to know if we have achieved anything so far, but what I know is that I get a lot of more questions about sustainability and health working. But it's really hard if we have achieved anything. If you listen to Greta, she says she started striking 3 years ago, and the carbon emission has just gone up since then. So I don't know, but I hope like an evening like this will do something.
Okay.
And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting in the industrial design world. People, of course, you can calculate by how successful your product was by the sales figures, or you can actually count the number of design awards you get, or the number of press publication, or the number of feedback, or most of all, I think the quality of feedback you get from your work. And I think it's also how much impact you have in the discussion. So people refer to a project, but it's already probably also your experience where you get an immediate feedback in the project. You see a process, you know, is the group as such learning? Where are your click moments, so to say? And I think it's always important in the design work. We talk about circular design, but also be reflective in your work and then be open to changes. I'm sure there were a lot of adjustments here in your National Library project. Yeah, it's actually, I think the context has really changed, and also, let's say I'm maybe not such a front runner as you in taking, I would call it radical, environmentally friendly or CO2 focused projects, but especially I think really the Corona times, as hard as they were, that triggered things. You know, there was a change, and we talk about the furniture industry, and I work closely with the German furniture industry. We have a couple of representatives of the furniture industry. We have Professor Martin Stosch, who had a talk, and he will later join us on the podium. We have a student also from Lemgo with us. So it's, as we talk, the issue of sustainability, Professor Martin Stosch represents lightweight and researching of that, the openness, and that industry comes to experts like us and to say, how can you as a design consultant help us in order to make mass products more sustainable? It comes more and more. So this reflection has been done. Now what we do out of that together, let's see, this is the next step.
What is the next step? I really like this report that I have behind me. That is called the Exponential Roadmap, where NGOs have counted how much emission different types of our production does. And our industry, the producer industry, we stand for 32% of the total emission. And to lower our emission with 50% to 2030, 20% of that is using recycled materials. So it is really good to use recycled material. But of course, as we have talked in so many times today, that they are recyclable also. And after that, it's, I think, renewables. We have more pictures here, but renewables, and that's like 10%. And then two other really big parts for us as designers are use less materials and use less materials and low carbon materials that I find, and even we talked about earlier today, is that materials with low carbon. So that's the most important things. I see that the pictures are not really going at the same time. Yeah, you can just turn them there. Yeah, and I missed that circular. But that's keyword, and that's like 5% of those 50%. But recycled material, and material is really the core. Yeah.
It's your responsibility on those who deal with design, with materials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the audience? I was wondering if maybe you know how seagrass is extracted.
How is...
We take that in the panel, maybe?
We'll look it up. We'll Google it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll Google it now.
Yeah, so what is your, like, if you want to recommend something to everyone listening, what would that be?
Yeah, I think to actually to extract also the learning from our discussion now, but also the preparation here is, my thoughts are, how can we bring our respective work from a niche into the vast majority of people? I would say democratic, a big Swedish furniture company kind of forged this expression of democratic design, and maybe it's a democratic sustainability. I think that's an interesting term. How can we actually help that? I mean, you have been a forerunner since long, and the question that I could contribute is, how can we bring that into the majority of the industry? How can we make this affordable and possible to make a sustainable lifestyle or way of living?
Yeah.
How can we bring this into the everyday lives of those who want? And I have a feeling in Germany the figures show that the majority of society wants to lead a sustainable lifestyle, but there's so many hurdles in that. It's budget, it's the scarce, let's say, you know, your everyday life is full of compromises, having a family, and you know, you want to travel and you don't want to be obsessed with things you're not obliged to do. So sustainability shouldn't be a negative thing. As if I were American, I would say it should be fun, but it's more like it should be the right thing. And maybe a term that I picked up in Sweden is this word lagom. This means it's just the right thing. And maybe avoiding the extremes and saying what's right for us, what's right for me in society, what's right, and where do I do the excess, you know, how much do I really need? And maybe two more things. It's Dieter Rams, the design icon from Germany. He said there are 10 principles.
Yes.
Little design as possible, really think about what you do. And then I'm referring to my work for Electrolux. Consider longevity or difficult to design classics. But, you know, it's the right thing. And also, we will also be doing masterclasses in joint cooperation. Dr. Anna Steno is a wonderful thinker and doer in the design scene. We're developing a program where we will talk a lot about just good enough. Not about excellence. I want to be the world champion in sustainability. I want to be the first who shoots the rocket to the moon, or being, you know, up in the air, whatever. This is old thinking. So, yeah, that's a little bit what drives me also with my clients. So what is it for you?
I think the carbon budget is really efficient, and but it's of course a big step if you think carbon budget is hard. And that with my materials really helped me get the start. Just 10 materials, and it was an easy way understanding, and it was 300s in between the best one and the worst one. But I think even private or as a consumer, it's really good that you do your carbon budget, and then you really understand what is doing the big parts and doing the small parts. So I would say do your carbon budget and lower it with 20% every year.
Wow, that's ambitious. But I heard some people achieve this.
Yeah, we actually, I really wanted to test that. And so we had, at our New Year's dinner every year, you have New Year's resolutions. And I said, can I come up with one this year? It was 5 years ago. And I said, yes, let's all count our carbon footprint, and then we lower it with 20% till next year. And we had, in Europe, we have like, we emit maybe around 7-10 per person. And we had like 5 till 30 at the dinner. And everyone lower it with at least 20 or even more. But the most interesting thing, I think, with this 5 years later is that the ones that have not been on the dinner, they don't really understand what emit compared to the ones that have been on these dinners And both are our friends that we meet like once a week or something. They really don't understand. So it has helped so much, even if it's just one dinner. And then I think it's really, that's why I do the budget.
Yeah. I like this story. Let's say among your friends, it's kind of a challenge, a positive challenge, where you say we want to reach this together, and I think you learn a lot from each other. Yeah, maybe taking on the learning out of the discussion with Emma, I learned that it's important that we start.
Yeah.
And to try things out, learn quickly, and as you say, put as a person and also as a professional clear targets. Yeah. I think that's the word.
That's the word.
Yeah, that's.
Is wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Sure that, can we do a round of applause first? Yeah, I like to think. I wonder if in 5 years you're still friends with the same people. But they're not counting
we started 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So yes, I am.
I guess so. Yeah. But I think also I will definitely pull some threads from this conversation in the panel. But we do have a schedule, and we are in Germany, so we're going to stick to it. Okay, I'm going to invite you guys back to your spot. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to be quite mobile today. Are there any questions? Did I leave anyone hanging? Come on, guys. Okay, so, do you know who this is? I'm about to tell you. So, you think he's Italian because his name is Dominik Campanella. No, he's not. He's German. He's German, and he's the co-founder of Concular, not Consular, if you wanted to know, which is a digital platform for circular construction. And under its umbrella, because he has a background in computer science, he has opened restado.de. Am I saying that correctly? Oh, yes, thank you, Charlie. I just realized. I'm just talking away. Which is a digital platform that connects, the largest marketplace, Europe's largest marketplace, for reclaimed construction materials. Hello, Dominik.
Hi.
Schönen guten Tag.
Thanks for the invitation. And actually, I have a dual citizenship. So I'm German and Italian.
Oh, you are?
Yes,
okay, I stand firmly corrected.
But as you already hear, I grew up in Germany.
Okay, okay, good. Well, welcome. We're really happy to have you. I would like to pick your brain a little bit about both Concular and the platform, and actually the feasibility, and we'll get into it. So can you tell us a little bit, because Concular is a startup, and I wanted to know, can you tell us what it does and how it works?
Yes, of course. Again, thanks for the invitation. It's also great to be here to see what's also on this side going in terms of sustainability. Really interesting discussion. As you already introduced, I'm one of the co-founders of Restado. My focus is on resource efficiency in the construction sector, because the construction sector is the largest polluter in the world. So 40% of GHG emissions are coming from it. And when we think about the construction sector, we normally think about energy in our heating systems. But that's only half of the emissions. The other half is actually emitted before a building is even finished. And it's because of the embodied carbon of construction materials and the take-make-waste principle. So we take resources out of our earth, we create materials with it, also interior materials, and then, especially in interior, we are changing it very fast. Sometimes in offices, changes every 10 to 15 years, and these materials are not getting reused; they're just getting disposed. In the best case, they're getting downcycled, so not even used for the same, but for something really low quality. And we from Restado Concular, we want to change that. So we started 9 years ago with Restado with the idea, okay, there's so much waste on construction sites, just create a marketplace, and where like a buyer and a seller can meet. And that worked also quite good. I mean, it grew, it's now the largest in Europe, but what we saw is that we can really reach private and small companies with that, but the impact is really in larger projects. And this is then where we created Concular 2 years ago, where we really focus on large projects of all kinds, residential buildings, office buildings, and so on. And we identify challenges. Why are large projects are not doing it. So we just ask, like, why are you not reusing materials?
Oi.
Yeah, because also one fact I didn't mention is like the reuse rate right now is at 1%. So there's a lot of potential. And so we estimate around 70% of materials can be actually reused. And we are not talking about recycling. We really talk about take it and put it somewhere else. It's as easy as it is. But
you say easy though, because you say easy. No, but because I wanted to know, because I imagine that deconstruction is a lot more expensive, time-consuming than demolishing. And so I kind of wanted to understand, on one hand, how does it work logistically? Because there must be a timing element. And then secondly, how is it financially feasible? Is it financially feasible? And who is your market as a result? I mean, are there do-gooders, or is it actually financially more viable?
So it didn't work so far because we don't know what materials are in a building. So
Right.
and when the demolition happening, you see, okay, they are like very valuable materials, but you just have a week or 2 weeks to find a buyer for it, or you store these materials, and that's also expensive. So it's not possible. So how we solve the problem is by digitizing the materials way before the demolition is happening. So around 1 year to 2 years before. And on the other side, projects also have a like long time plan, so of 1 year, so we can match that way before. And with that, it's feasible from the timing and also from the money side. So looking at the economical side, there are materials. So we are able to get materials again in a circle for the same price. There are even materials which are so interesting that people are willing to pay more for that than they paid.
Who are these lunatics?
Sorry, what did you say?
Who are these people?
Look at bricks.
Sure.
It's like bricks which are 100 years old.
But that's different, right? Because that has a different sort of, also an aesthetic and a heritage value. So that's also like a little bit different than reusing rebar or, I don't know, crushed concrete or something, right?
Yes, yeah, but we're also talking about elements, and I think I think it's about marketing also, how you sell something. We want to sell a history behind materials which are in a building for 15, 20, 30 years. There's a history behind, and we want to sell that, and with that we give it a value. So sounds a bit weird, but we are looking on how luxury marketing is working for construction materials, because when we know how they're doing this and we can apply it to these materials, we can create a value, because right now a material at the end of the lifetime of a building is worth nothing, although it has a worth, and we have to give back this value to the materials.
I can see how that works for, like I said, heritage materials and visible materials, but also when it comes to, invisible materials, because a lot of stuff, I don't know what's in a building. I mean, I do, but like, what about those materials? Are those more expensive than to source? Tell us the truth.
There are materials, so looking at concrete is difficult for sure, but that's not the case. It's a bit also because of legislation and a strong lobby of current manufacturers who actually don't want to recycle concrete. So that's something difficult, but except of that, I think most of the materials can be also reused. Depends a bit on how they were put in a building. If you use, so of course you can't use pollutant materials.
Preferably not.
Yeah, it's not very good. And also if you glue this material, the material, it's also quite difficult to get it out. But except of that, there's in every building there are values which you can get out and which you can reuse.
Right. And then does that also change the way that we should be building? Because we're building in a way to demolish.
Yeah.
How do you think that we should be building differently to deconstruct rather than demolish, to make your job a little bit easier?
First of all, I think it's too late.
Oh, that's bad news, guys.
Yeah, because when we now build a building, we hopefully deconstruct it not before 30, 40 years. When did we want to go carbon neutral? It's like in 15, 20 years.
Now.
So it's too late to build. Of course, we should still. So there's also discussion, should we even build? I mean, why do we need new buildings? Actually, we have enough buildings. So you can go on this opinion.
Right.
Of course, that's a very radical opinion, but...
also, a lot of infrastructure is failing us. So
yeah, of course, infrastructure, but like an office building, it's also about repurposing buildings and so on. So there's a lot of thinking right now in the construction industry of like, how do we even need to build something new? Do we have to demolish something? There's actually most of the time there's no need to demolish a building except of building something new and getting some money out of it. But of course it's still happening and will happen. And so yeah, of course there are new methods of constructing for deconstruction.
Right.
That's possible. You don't glue. You use sustainable materials. You use reclaimed materials and so on. So there's a lot of opportunities right now. Yeah.
And so just kind of shifting gears a bit, tell us a bit about the team, because I imagine you also need architects, you need scientists. So your background is in computer science, and that's sort of how, tell us more.
Yeah, I'm not, so most of the people are saying computer scientists are not real scientists, but anyway, so yeah, it's like, anyway, it's, I studied computer science and coming actually from that field, I worked a couple of years for Google, so got this digital field and then tried to do something good.
That person loved that you worked at Google, I think.
Yeah, they have nice offices, and I think.
Do they use reclaimed materials?
Yeah, so we are working with them, but we didn't complete a project with them so far. But I think there's a lot of opportunity also there. From the team, we are around 20 people right now, ranging from architects, engineers, so like construction engineers. We also have scientists, like.
You were about to say real scientists.
So we are working, for example, with a professor from the RWH Aachen, because it's also about life cycle assessment. So you really have to calculate how much impact this is in terms of how much resources, how much waste do we save, how much CO2 emissions do we save, and also how much money can be made, because we always have to do a business case out of that.
Right. So speaking of money, how does your company remain financially solvent? Does it?
Yeah, it is.
It must do.
I mean, yeah.
You have all these scientists.
So I have to pay every month the salaries. So somehow the money has to come from.
All these scientists need to be paid.
Yeah. So we sell the materials and then we get a commission for it. It's quite easy, the business model. And so if we are not successful, we are not getting money. So we are incentivized to sell. Yeah. This is basically our business model. Right.
No, that's brilliant. And then how do you see it progressing? I mean, what element are you missing to really kick it up a notch, would you say? Awareness?
I think most important is legislation.
Right.
So construction legislation is very complex. And in Germany, for example, every state has its own legislation. It's 10,000 pages. No one knows exactly what's written in there, but it's all for new materials. So we have to change it in to be able to also use reclaimed materials more easily, because otherwise someone is coming from like the government saying like, no, you're not allowed to do this. So you take a brick, you put it in, and once it's put in and you put it out, then it's waste.
But the legislation or the policy for reclaimed materials is different than that? There is none. Okay, so you just kind of, you're sort of free, you're like freebasing it, freeballing it.
Yeah, there are ways around. Yeah. And of course, we're talking to politicians and we're saying like, if you're too slow, we are just doing it. Do
you think that you could play a part in starting to write it?
We have made recommendations.
Oh.
Yeah, so there are recommendations, and so we are working on a German national and local level, but also European level, but it's difficult. It's politicians.
And bureaucracy just moves quite slowly.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing is the awareness, or like the value of materials which are reclaimed. So something which is put in a building and which looks like new and works like new after 20 years is also in a very good condition. And we can also prove that. So please give it also the value. And so this is where this marketing and awareness part is coming into play. Yeah.
So just because you, on the website, it said that you're disruptors, which makes sense to me. And I wanted to know where you got most sort of enthusiastic encouragement and support, and who did you really bother by doing this, do you think? Did you get any pushback?
Yeah, but I also think pushback is motivation, because I think when there are people coming to you and say this is not possible and this will not work, then you're on the right track. And so that definitely motivates us. But of course, there's also a lot in the industry which is saying like it's great what we're doing. So especially like architects. I mean, the more creative people, they like to work with something new and so on.
These people.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that these are like the persons who are really supporting us. Manufacturers. It's like some have
The love-hate.
yes, no, they some of them are a bit cautious because they think like, oh, then we can't sell new materials anymore. But we help them to create a circle. So when they work with us, it's great. Yeah. And we're also working with some great manufacturers also for interior materials like Zumtobel, Forbo. Like interface and so on, I think. So there's some really interesting manufacturers who really want to be on the forefront of sustainability. And yeah, I think in general pushback, there's, I mean, I
can see just by your body language, like, wow, too bad.
Yeah, I mean, you always have these people, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well, does anyone have a question? I think let's do a round of applause for Dominik. That was great. Thank you, Dominik. I think this policy, okay, I'm going to run over to you. I have a question from Ruud, Belmans, doing a short jog here.
Thank you. First of all, I love the concept, and it's really cool that you do this. We've been trying to work, as a design studio, we've been trying to work with a contractor as well. I don't know if you know Hilisse, and he's also doing kind of this thing. So he takes construction materials out of other projects and he builds them into new projects. We wanted to get him on board, but we had the timing issue. You've talked about the timing issue before, and that seems to be a problem because within the design process, there needs to be a match between available materials and also available materials for projects that are built in 3 years' time, for example.
Yes, so we have a database of all the materials which will be available in 1, 2, 3 years, so you can access it, you can filter it, of course, by availability, by location, by type of material, and then you can use that in your planning. And you can just say, I take that, and then we take care about all the rest. Yeah, so that's because we digitize these materials way before. So, and then we can assure that they're also available at that point of time.
All right, and your clients, so not on the deconstruction side, but on the new project side, is it mostly architects or is it also like construction companies? Yeah,
so it's mostly the project developers who are paying for that, but the architects are using it. So it's for them. It's like a material catalog. It's just a catalog as for everyone, as you get also from the manufacturers, and you can source your materials here. So it's like the architects are using our software, but others are paying for it. Yeah, or the architects are also not paying for the materials in the end. Yeah, so it's like access for free.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Dominik? Then we do another round of applause just to keep the enthusiasm high. Thanks, Dominik. I'm going to steal this one back from you as well. So the train continues. The sustainability. It's a train, right, Emma? Yeah, it's a train. This is a bit excessive. So, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much. So 2 Emmas. So now we're going to sort of shift into a new hybrid model. Actually, I've never done this before. So Cecilia, Sebesta, who you've met, can I invite you to the stage, Cecilia?
And you lost 2 papers here.
It's a mess. It's fine. And Cecilia will be, let's do this. Go ahead, have a seat. Actually, maybe I'll join you for a hot second. So Cecilia Sebesta will be speaking with Anna Berglind. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I'll do my best. Cecilia over here, to my right, is the VP of Sales of Emeco and is also kind of personally and privately, no? There we are. Professionally and privately, really engaged in the idea of sustainability, also bringing people together. And she, as we mentioned, played a pivotal role in gathering us all here today. She will be speaking to Anna, who is the sustainability manager for H&M, who will be on... on a screen. Oh no, that's me. I think we're hooking it up, right? Is Anna on the... Like I said, this is a hybrid model. I haven't done a talk with someone on the screen before. There she is. Oh, perfect. I'm going to make way for her in that case. And I wanted to... Hey, Anna, can you hear us? Audio.
Hello?
Hello.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
a bit of an echo, but you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Should I start?
Good.
Yeah.
Please do. Maybe, Cecilia, we have to talk a little bit slow because it's actually, maybe now the echo disappeared.
That's going to be a very big
much better.
challenge for me because I talk
Much
a lot and very
better.
quick. But anyway, okay.
I know.
I'll get that. Okay, so this is also very new to me. I was hoping to get Anna at my table, but there's something called restrictions and letting restrictions, and Anna being a part of the sustainable department at H&M, I don't think they're the first one to go traveling when the restrictions are let, so we're probably going to meet up later. But anyway, I just want to jump back to the thing that Emma talked about, Olbers, before, about dinners. I think dinners are the best meeting point ever, I think, for people. So we met a lot of you guys at dinner in Stockholm in February 2020, and Anna Berglind was actually part of that dinner. And since then, we've been talking every week, more or less. We don't have a professional relationship. I don't do any business with H&M. And H&M doesn't really, well, they're part of our business too, because they do have a lot of shops and they need to furnish those shops. So Anna is working for the non-commercial goods department, which is actually working on that side of the business. But so again, we don't have a professional relationship, but become really good friends. And we have these, what we call nerd talks every week. So we dig in and we share networks and we talk about stuff happened. And it's so exciting for me to take part. Anna's been in the company for more than 20 years. It's a global big company, and they have an extreme complexity. At Emeco, we are privileged to come from a quite clear background with working with waste materials. So the talk today about sustainability and measuring the materials has been, it's not an easy ride for anybody, but we're having a more clearer, we're a smaller company to start with, but we have a clearer starting point, I would say. But what I found out with H&M is actually that because they've been under the loop since the 80s, 90s about child labor, conditions for workers in non-developed countries where they actually have production, they also set up extremely interesting infrastructure for controlling themselves, indexing things, what's coming in, what's going out, how things are managed. And I think a lot of the talks today is about infrastructural managing processes, keeping track of materials and indexing stuff. So having that system already in the 90s, you can make use of that with another purpose, I think. I don't know where she's gone, but anyway, she's back.
I'm here.
Great.
I can hear you and I can see you.
Great. Okay, so that's how we met, and that's what we do every kind of week. And now we're talking in front of a lot of people, which is really exciting. They get a part of our nerd talk. Okay, so we're going to try to keep it a bit, higher up and not go down too deep because we just have a couple of minutes. But yeah, Anna's always keeping it simple, straightforward. Exactly. That's great. No, but I was just saying, with the background that H&M has with these systems since a long time ago, and now using that knowledge and that competence to also monitoring the sustainable part. Would you like to tell me and tell everybody else, what is it you're doing really at H&M?
Of course. Hi, everyone. Very nice meeting you. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person, but as Cecilia already mentioned, we still have restrictions and we try to travel as little as possible. So let's hope that this will also be a way of doing it in a good way. Like Cecilia said, I work for the non-commercial goods department. I'm actually hired by, or I work at what we call global expansion. My role is sustainability specialist, and I'm supporting our development teams, both designers, architects, and also the procurement team. So I'm actually supporting our entire supply chain when it comes to interior, window products like mannequins and props, and also consumer packaging material. In H&M, we have been working with sustainability for quite many years. We made our first full factory audits that was more than 30 years ago. At the time when we, like Cecilia mentioned, when we started to work with sustainability, that was actually when we ran into child labor in our face in factories that we were working with. Then it became very clear to us that we have to make sure that we have a clear code of the expectation and requirements that we should have on our supply chain. So that's when we created the first code of conduct. Today, we work with something that we call sustainability commitment. Sustainability commitment needs to be signed by all business partners that we work with. And it's covering healthy workplaces, it covers healthy ecosystem with a lot of focus on environment, and also something that we call animal welfare. And that has quite a lot to do with material, but also going all the way to cover biodiversity. Can you hear me well? Because I still hear an echo.
Okay.
Is it okay? You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. No problem.
Yeah. Then I can just ignore the echo, no problem.
Yeah.
More to be said, we are a huge company. We are a huge company group. We are 150,000 employees. With that also comes, of course, a big responsibility. I have been listening. It's super interesting. Thank you guys for sharing your experience. When I listened to both to Emma and the other man, I'm sorry, Martin. I don't remember his name, Martin. And also Dominik, that there are, we all, I mean, even if we are a big corporation, a big company, we are still facing, I would say, the same kind of challenges as small companies are facing. And also, I'm representing H&M Group, so it's not only the mothership, so to say, H&M, it's also COS, Arket, other stories, and the other brands we have. So it's actually also some small brands. But believe it or not, with 5,000 stores that we actually have around 9.5 million square meter of built environment. So that you can call big impact. Cecilia, maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
I was just going to jump in, actually, because being a part of Ellen MacArthur Foundation and these kind of really lobbying, networks is something that H&M has been for forever. But I truly believe in these small talks and these small dinners and, going together like this and trying to move things forward. I think that's what's needed alongside these big networks. So when we talk always, it's like she tells me something new. She tells me a new contact or somebody new they talk to, a new innovation they're investigating, which I always write down and I go and Google it and see if there's something to read up, to follow up. Maybe for the next network, we can invite this person or get that connected. So with this extreme complexity, we wanted to highlight here today that there's nowhere to hide. That sounds really tough, but Anna is pointing out being a large company, and we are a smaller company, but everybody has to do the same stuff. And even if H&M is that size, they still have the same complex questions ahead of them. And I think that the learning curve is always interesting, and when you are a big company, the problem here is usually that these are complex questions everybody touched upon here today so far. And a lot of the time that kind of paralyzes a lot of businesses. They don't know how to start. With H&M, they've been fortunate to have a budget for these stuff, and they've been trying out a lot of different ways of dealing and attacking this indexing of systems, materials and stuff. But the learning, I think, Anna, what we talked about also is the first time, or in the beginning when you started to work with sustainable questions, you dug very deep, right? So you went into a more product by product perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mentioned, when we start working with sustainability, it was a lot of focus around the social agenda, which is still a very big part of our sustainability work, because it all starts with people. It starts with people understanding why, and so that is nothing that will change. But around 5 years ago, we started to focus more around circular economy and circular design. H&M Group has very ambitious goals around this. We are to become 100% circular. By 2030, we are only allowed to use recycled or what we call other sustainable source material. And by 2040, we are going to be a climate positive value chain. And by doing this, or to reach the goals, it became extremely clear to us that we have to make sure that we have a clear strategy that will also deliver according to the goals and visions. When we set the strategy, we also made sure that we were aligned, because no matter if it's around commercial or non-commercial products, we have the same goal, we have the same vision, the same requirements, and we work in the same way. So to really make sure that we identify the right activities. And Cecilia, you and I, we have been talking a lot about the importance with full transparency and full traceability. And I would say the 3 keywords that we cannot do without, that is collaboration. We are a huge company group, but we are totally depending on our both internal and external stakeholders and business partners. We cannot do this alone. We don't have any production of our own. We outsource all production, non-commercial as commercial. So very ambitious, we start measuring. We developed a tool that could actually calculate circularity of a product. And here we were focusing both on circular design principles, material, and also, of course, how much of this of the different material that each product was made of. And I think to look at the background text that I have, we keep it simple. What we have learned from that was that, first of all, because you can chase data and you can collect reports and information from your supply chain, but the most important is to identify what kind of data you actually need and why, and how you're going to use it. So now we actually took a few steps back to really make sure that, first of all, we identify what kind of data do we need and why, and develop tools according to that.
And
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, and I think,
quiet.
yeah, but that's actually what we've thought about at Emeco too. I mean, the learning curve here is actually don't dig too deep to begin with. And the fact that when H&M go out of a shop, I learned that there's a lot of waste material. Dominik, you're nodding. A lot of waste material that just get left. What to do with that? So, you know, raising the perspective as H&M did later to try to see the flow of things, where it goes in, where it comes out, what is actually put into the system, is really super important, because being able to maybe give it back or lease material in the future, this is something we've been talking about all the time. At Emeco, what we found out to make it simpler for people buying our products was we started to use something called the 2030 calculator, which is a product made by a Swedish tech company called Economy. So we are now launching CO2 emission statements on all our products. It's making it more simple for people to identify what we stand for. We've been doing also all kinds of tests also throughout the years, VOCs, and we're declared in numerous places. But a lot of these people, and making it clear and simple, they don't really know what it stands for. So I thought it would be very interesting to talk publicly this time with Anna for all of you, because having these huge company, complex company, have the same questions, also learned, made a mistake, went too far down, but then got up again and now analyzing the more strategic processes. But actually taking a lot of time to educate internally, to tell people what they're doing, to be transparent, to have this really super clear roadmap in the company of where they're heading and what it means for people. Because it's also a social, sustainable aspect. They can pull out a factory quite quickly if it doesn't measure up, and people will lose their jobs. This is nothing you want to do. So you want to keep the jobs, you want to keep people working, you want to keep the system, but you want to make them do better all the time. But that has to be very clear for people how that's being done. So that's why I thought it would be interesting to share the experience we have every week, me and Anna, what we talk about. And you tell me, but I learn a lot from just speaking to somebody who's been in this super complex system all the time. Pulling things out of our conversation and trying to make other people meet people that she meets in her everyday job. I think we're losing her a bit here. She's coming back.
No. I can hear you.
She's there.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Was that correct?
you.
Is that a correct explanation, do you think, or?
Yes, absolutely. But and I think what this is, it's a lot of testing, piloting, failing, testing again, learning, and then we reach some kind of success, and then we go from there. But what we have learned, like the big lesson, is to make sure that when we pilot or when we make tests, or that can be internally or with right now we have a big project where we're actually trying to together with an American company develop a flooring that is zero emission. So it's like to replace the kind of flooring that we are using today, but it's like this is still in the lab stage, but also make sure that when we do this kind of pilots and tests, that we also make sure that we learn from it. Not only testing without following up, because from like a historical perspective, we have been pretty good doing that, to be honest with you. But I think also we actually have also some success stories, because at the same time when we were developing this that we call CAT tool, which is Product Circular Assessment Tool, we also developed a tool or like an evaluation method for measuring suppliers' environmental performance with focus on circularity. We call it SCAT, Supplier Circular Assessment Tool. We have been running that for 3 years. All sustainability work that we do is of course done on what we call production unit level. It's done out in the factories. Many of our suppliers, I think today within non-commercial product supply chain, we work with approx like 200 suppliers, but we work with like 370 or something production units. So it's more factories. So all the work when it comes to evaluating that is done out in the factories. And this has been really successful because what it does is that at the same time as we kind of push our supply chain to start measuring and to start thinking about things, because they are all fully responsible for their own development. Our job is to support them in their development, but from our side to also learn to identify who are the best supplier, which one should we focus on, to make sure that you focus on the right things. And that comes from, or that covers everything, I would say, not only suppliers or factories, but also material, or you start identifying the biggest impact, and then you start with those. So you don't start from like a too broad field, because it's both exhausting and also can actually make people kind of lose track of the red thread. So the SCAT, the circular assessment tool, is something that we will continue working with. We develop the content of the questions pretty much every second year to make sure that we receive the kind of data that we really want. This year, we have an improved result with 9%, so we can really follow the development of our suppliers and their factories. And by doing that, we can also manage to connect performance with business, because I think that is also what this is all about, to make sure that we reward the ones that are actually doing a good job by giving them bigger orders. Because I think sometimes we have a tendency of forgetting that we talk about circular economy here. Circular economy is not a sustainability activity, it's a business model. And it's sometimes it's quite easy to forget that. Everything pretty much in the world is still measured according to a linear business model. So when we are shifting into circular economy, I think it's also very important to keep in the back of our head that we have to start measuring success and measuring everything according to a circular model as well.
Should that be the final words, I guess, because we are running out of time? So learning from a big company means that they also make mistakes. They start in the wrong direction, but then they change the direction. And I think I'm going to follow up on Martin Beeh's comment that you can't solve the whole world problem, but you can start in a good way, and we can learn from these guys. So thank you so much, Anna. See you next week.
Thank you.
I actually really understand why they speak once a week. I mean, there's a lot to cover, no? Maybe you should turn it into a podcast. So Anna and, well, Cecilia, of course, and Anna will also be joining us at the panel later. So if you have any questions, which you may probably have, give us a shout. I'm going to take this other mic. Would you prefer to be on the stage, or are you good there? Yeah? Okay. Cool. We'll keep it cozy. Okay.
I'm not good, I'm lazy.
Well, not in terms of your practice. Let me give you this framework. So let me introduce you from over here. So we'll be speaking to, or rather, Ruud Belmans. I'm just introducing you. Give me a second. So Ruud Belmans, who some of you may have been at the masterclass. Ruud is the co-founder with Fabian van Dijk over here, co-founder of WeWantMore Studio, indicating that they, in fact, want more. They run an independent design studio specialized in interior design and branding, and they're here today partly also to talk about this color-coded sample library, sort of indicating the good materials and the naughty materials to help designers choose from a more visual perspective, because we are visual creatures. And he'll be speaking with I can't say it in Swedish, I wish I could, but Charlotte van der Lancken, who is an industrial designer and founder of CVDLAB, which specializes in innovative product design and biomaterials. And she has been looking at this collaboration, or maybe lack thereof, between scientists and researchers and this sort of industry. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Okay, so it's really interesting to meet you, Ruud. I already heard your masterclass upstairs, so I know a little bit about your thoughts. But I'm curious to know, when did you feel the urgency for a sustainable approach for the first time?
Well, not that long ago, to be honest. So this is the first kind of sustainability get-together where I don't really feel like a fraud. So that's already a good start. I think it was not even 2 years ago. Was it? I'm really bad at maths. February 2020. So not 2 years ago. And it was in Stockholm, and it was on invitation by Cecilia and Emeco. And we were there with a couple of people here as well. And I got the question on how a design studio like ours deals with sustainability. And my very hypocrite answer was that it always quite high up in the brief, or in the client brief. So if we design in a hotel or we get a design brief for a hotel, it's always very, very important. But then we start designing, not really thinking about sustainability. But there are some sustainable materials in there. And well, let's be honest, we don't really know they're sustainable. It's just like materials that suppliers tell us are sustainable. So we put them in there. And when they seem to be too expensive, the client says, no, I'm not paying for that. And then we say, okay, so then you don't have a sustainable design. And so that was my answer. And everybody kind of agreed with it. And that was kind of, first of all, it was after that, I realized that my answer was really it was a bullshit answer. It was very hypocrite. So what I did was I shifted our responsibility as a design studio towards the client. So, okay, if you can't pay for it, tough luck. You won't have a sustainable design. And after that, it didn't shock me, but I realized that other designers, but not all of them, but like the majority of designers there, they agreed with my answer. So that meant that I was not the only one thinking like that and acting like that. And
do you think that there is a lack of knowledge about sustainability and how to act as a designer to be this sustainable? Or why do you think this is?
Yeah, there is definitely a lack of knowledge. But I also think that a lot of designers will agree with that. I mean, they will agree with it because if you ask them about sustainability, they will probably not be able to answer. But they're not facing the fact that there's a lack of knowledge. Because I'm just going to talk as we, because like as designers, we talk about it a lot. And that by talking about it, we can kind of hide behind the fact that there's a lack of knowledge. Because we can say stuff, but if it's true or not, we don't know. I've heard it somewhere, and I'm just going to repeat it. But yeah, there is a lack of knowledge, but I think we're hiding behind the realization of it by talking about it.
I have also, I'm also a designer, but in the furniture field. And my experience is that the royalty system that is highly applied in the furniture design field works towards this idea of producing less furniture, making them last longer, and sort of do a circular product from start, because that takes so much more effort in the beginning of the life cycle of a product. And I think, I don't know if you have the same experience, because you probably don't work with the royalty payments as furniture designers do, but in my opinion, this system is sort of working against a sustainable development.
Against? Why? Because
it forces designers to do as many products as possible in such a short time as possible.
Yeah, but still, I think that in the furniture design business, the knowledge and the interest in sustainability is bigger than in the interior design business we are in. So when I say we, I talk about design studios, having to design commercial projects like hotel, restaurants, and retail. And I think A lot of furniture designers, they also have kind of an industrial design background. And being an industrial, because I'm an industrial designer myself, but you're very interested in how stuff is made, how stuff could be made differently to solve a couple of design problems from the start already, and not just polishing it up. And not to talk disrespectful about interior architects or designers, I think, because it's just, I think the school system is wrong, educational system is wrong. They don't get, how do you say, confronted? No, it's like, they don't have to deal with those sustainability elements and the elements of how dealing with sustainability in production in school. They just don't learn it. So it's not their fault. But that doesn't take away the fact that there is a problem of lack of knowledge.
That takes me to the other question I had. I came up with a few more. So which is the role of the designer, do you think, in the future, or in this in the strive towards circular economy and sustainability?
Yeah, it's also something I explained in the masterclass, that the role of the designer is a very, very important one. And I think every designer is already saying that his role is very important, but they're even underestimating their role. Because what most of us are focused on is creating some kind of impact on a visual or experience level, which is already good because it makes people happy, it makes them feel good about the products or the interiors they use, so which is good. But the designer basically is, and again, in terms of design studios, we're the middleman between a customer and a supplier, and we have to match those. So the supplier and the suppliers have been doing efforts for 10 years already, or even more. They have been spending money, energy, time into creating sustainable solutions. And then there's the client side, and the client side also is influenced by his end consumer, and they're starting to ask more and more about sustainability. So the client has to answer those demands. So there's a growing supply side, there's a growing market side, and then we as designers or design studios are in between that, and that's where it stops. So we don't match the solutions with the demand, basically, I think, most of the time. Because of, it's too expensive, and I'm sorry, it didn't work out. So I think that designers up to now are not taking responsibility enough. But it's difficult to take responsibility because the field of sustainability is so complex that you cannot expect from a designer working in a design studio or working like independently that he has all this knowledge. So he or she is just not capable of making the right decisions because it's way too complex. So I think that designers should be assisted by scientists and sustainability experts and managers, either in the company or either independently, to make sure that they can make the right decision, because you can't expect it from them.
In my opinion, I think that it's a very good situation for a designer to be in the middle between what's being produced and the development of new materials and sustainable new alternatives, and I think that that role for a designer in the future can be a lot more developed, because with my experience having worked with scientists and researchers at biomaterial section at RISE, there is also a lack of connections between scientists and new materials and research and the market and the production field. And I think being designer makes the designer's work a lot more important in that sense, because you can actually implement new materials, you can implement new techniques and new technologies, and you can reject materials with a high content of bad chemicals and such things. So I think it's very valuable if you can learn designers more about this already in school, to learn designers about new materials, new techniques, and harmful chemicals. So, what do you think?
Exactly, I think that's what needs to happen. But again, there's a huge responsibility for educational institutions there, and I'm afraid that the nature of educational institutions is that they tend to change and evolve quite slowly. And I think that's a problem. So I think that we can make designers aware that they need to broaden their scope and field of expertise. Not field of expertise, but they need to be able to talk the language of scientists, of other experts. They need to be able to middleman, because that's what we are. We are the middleman. Actually, my education, industrial engineer, was totally about being the middleman. I was an expert in nothing when I stopped studying, when I ended my studies. But I was a middleman. I could talk to engineers. I could talk to there was an economical part. There was the ergonomical part. So I just could bridge and bring everyone together. And I think that is very important. And I think that approach, coming from industrial design, should merge more in other creative professions like interior design as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm also an industrial designer as a background, and what we are actually good at is actually to take different aspects or qualities and the things that we want and put them together into a final good result. And if we can just also add the future technologies, the future materials, a better alternatives to the existing ones, that could be a very good part of
but if I understand correctly, you're working actually at that crossing point of science and production in a way, no? That's what you do. You are being a middleman.
Yeah, I've always been a middle woman. In terms, I have two brothers as well, and as you say, you're always the middle woman in the design process, because you're always searching around for different qualities and putting them together. But yeah, my background is in design. I started front design many years ago, and I've been working in the design field for many years. But I was really lucky to also be employed by RISE, which is a very big research institute in Sweden, and where I worked with the biomaterials and substitution of bad chemicals. So that gave me a really good insight in what's going on in the research field, and also what we need to do in the furniture field in order to make it circular. And I did a really interesting project where we made a survey with Swedish companies about bad chemicals in furniture, because we wanted to know what the companies knew about chemicals and the content and what they needed and where the big problems are. So this was really interesting, and we found out that there's a pretty good knowledge, at least in Swedish companies, about chemicals. But the thing is that this is really the starting point. If we're going towards a circular economy, we need to eliminate and reduce all the chemicals, because there's really a lot of bad chemicals in textile and in leather in lacquer, like 2-component lacquer, chrome, polyurethane foam, and different surfaces. So in order to have a fully circular system, we need to first of all reduce all those chemicals.
That sounds very scientifically to me. But I think it's interesting. But then again, if this information, and you being like the middlewoman between production and science, but if that information doesn't reach the designers in a way, doesn't it stop there then in a way? I mean, I think designers need in a way understand the work that you do in order to, okay, I mean, you're designing yourself, but if the knowledge that you create needs to be transferred onto other designers as well. How do you think that could happen?
I think that this is a topic that we need to learn in schools already. So, as I said, going towards a circular economy, we need to make the product circular already from start. And this is where, I mean, there's this expression, safe by design, which is meaning that making a product circular from start can save up to 80%, I think, of the total impact and sustainable impact.
So I think we can agree that design is very multidisciplinary profession. Which other professions or expertise do you think are crucial in the next years to be involved in a design process or in a design studio even?
I think really what you spoke about before with collaboration is key, because we are all facing the same problems. So we need to really collaborate not only within the furniture business but also with scientists. But then doing that, we can put pressure, I think, on the suppliers of material, because the material suppliers, they sell material to many different companies, but our companies are rather small. At least in Sweden, the furniture brands they're usually very small, like family-based companies, and they don't have the economy to pay for a development. So I think in this case we are all facing the same issues, the same problem, and therefore we also have to solve them together, because these are questions that it's not always competitive for the companies to make a better product, because it's invisible. You don't see if one product is better than the other, because they look the same, but one can potentially give you cancer, and the other one is okay. Sorry, that was maybe too much, but it's true. It's true, right? And then I wanted to mention also that there are so many possibilities within the biomaterial field. I was so stuck here with the chemicals, but there are so much possibilities. The forest is not only a great consumer of CO2, it's also a great source of raw material. And there are things you can do with wood that is fantastic. Like you can, as you know, you can make plastic, but you can also make transparent wood. You can make glue. You can drive cars on it. You can make wood completely white without any color, and also like mushroom and mycelium, and there are so many biomaterials that can, on one hand, they can replace harmful materials out there, but on the other hand, they can also do new things. They can, for example, mycelium can grow on demand, and you can make it stop grow, and then you can make it grow again. So you can grow products and you can sort of... You
can make it grow in shapes and
you
can direct it.
Fantastic.
It's cool.
Just imagine.
Yeah, I agree. I think material scientists or material designers could be like a really good addition in the design industry. Because I think now, and you have these platforms like Material, which I like. When I'm in a fair and I see their booth, I mean, I spend like at least an hour there and I touch everything and I even smell it. And I mean, it's nice to see, but then you take some pictures of materials and then you leave and you never use them. Because they're still quite at the forefront of it. But it should be brought in a more applicable way or easy way, so that it would be brilliant if I think there's two professions that would be really brilliant in a design studio. It's like a material engineer and material designer. That would be brilliant. And also some kind of data nerd in a way, that because we have to process, especially in we're generating quite some data when we do research on sustainability and we do surveys and everything. And if you have someone who can visualize that data in a very, very easy way, because now we're doing it in an analog way, but that I think that could generate a lot of new possibilities and insights that would change a lot of stuff. So. All right.
So I got my own mic, so thanks for nothing, guys. I'm going to be speaking here with Andrea Meloni.
Perfect.
Yeah?
Perfect. Perfectly Italian.
I'm wondering if we should move to the stage. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So don't be shy, we don't bite. I mean, I speak for myself, I don't bite. But maybe we move to the stage for the live stream? What do you think? Andrea already agreed, so
sure.
We're going to the stage. So, Andrea.
There you go.
There we go. Do you guys want to reshuffle or are you solid? Good. So Andrea is the head of sustainability at ARPA, and ARPA sort of committed itself to, or put at the forefront, this idea of circular, life cycles of products and also I think materials, and you've kind of led the way, or at least, giving it a good go. I have some questions for you, and I feel like I'm grilling you a little bit. But sustainability plays a really, really big part on your website as well. And it's really, already on the homepage, it seems like it's really a critical element. And there's a quote from the ARPA chairman I'm going to test.
You're going to pick me on that one,
Yeah, exactly,
right?
yeah, here we go. So sustainability means implementing new models and behaviors that respect the delicate balance between the planet and its vital sources. So maybe we can start by telling us a bit about how ARPA aims to do that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it all starts probably with culture, right? So we have picked this topic from all the speeches I've been hearing today, right? Culture is not only knowing about things, but also instilling, sharing, building. As well. So I think when we look at the single values, the single elements, the single participants in this round, we need really to talk mainly about corporate culture as well. So corporate culture. So we are companies, right? So we are producing things, and people are producing things. So we need that these people that produce these things are all working together towards one goal. So and the thing and the way that you have to do that is with a culture which is shared by anyone. So that's one important thing I think we should be sharing also with the audience, is that that really needs to be a democratic process, right? Sometimes it's a word which is abused, but it doesn't really make sense if something comes from above and it's not shared by the people that have to do that on a daily basis, right?
You're talking in quite abstract terms.
Yeah, sure. I'll make an example. So we are now working on a materiality matrix, right, internal. So basically we're going around to ask people, or we need to figure out what is important for us. Before we're going out to the external stakeholders, we need to know what is important for us. And we decided to do that in a very bottom-up way, like in a bottom-up approach. So what we're doing, we're doing workshops internally where we actually ask people through like a process and a format that we have been developing what is important for them. But not only like to the leading people, right? But also like to the people that have like a practical daily approach to these things. Logistic managers, production people, even like sales people as well, right? So we are enlarging this thing, and we're trying to have like an approach which includes the whole group. ARPA is not only one company, we've got several companies belonging to the group, right? So we need that everybody plays his role and he's on board if you want that to happen. Well, it's more of a workshop. So we are in, this is due to actually goals. The first thing is actually to get the information, right? To understand what we think is important for us, because it's not only what is important for me as a man or as a personal individual, but it's more important what is for everybody is one thing. Otherwise, I'm just imposing something and nobody's going to follow in me, right? And that's the first thing. Then obviously you scale up. At some stage you need to have a strategy, and you need to impose a strategy or like a couple of choices. But though if we can make it that these choices have been shared in the first place with everybody, then you're stronger, right? So you're just like sharing something or like that everybody knows about.
And does that have anything to do with the ARPA environmental?
Yeah. Yeah, so, well, we actually started quite I would say early is a big word, right? But like our first effort started in 2005. And I think we inherited that from our founder, right? ARPA was founded in 1989, so we're a rather young company as such. But like our founder, Luigi Feltrin, he was totally aware that when you do business, you have a responsibility, right? So you cannot just go out there and do something and don't care about it, just get the money and go away, right? So there are a lot of responsibilities for the people that are working for you, for the people that are buying your product because you're selling them something, you're giving them something to them, and for the ecosystem you're working on. So if you actually pick these three things, they are actually the basis, the three legs of the sustainability stool, right? So you've got like, you've got environment, you've got the social part, and the economic part as a company. So, and I think like the environmental department is this thing happening like with one of these three legs, right? So at some stage you said like, well, these values that they shared with us and that we are still carrying today actually told us that we need to do something for the ecosystem as well. And that's where it all started in 2005, obviously, yeah.
And so is this also a bit related, because you mentioned a tribe among people like yourself who are in working for companies who do produce at scale, but who also believe in the sustainability, because at its face, you could say that it's a little bit, it seems a bit odd, really. But have you found your tribe within people who are in manufacturing, but also believe in sort of trying to,
Well, I mean, today is an example, pretty much. So it's quite a big, it's a quite good bunch, right? So we've got interior designers, we've got like architects, we've got producers, we've got any kind of like people that are actually can contribute to this thing. So basically, we are doing one part of we are just one part of the equation, right? We are producers, so our task is to bring out products that these people can also work with, one way or the other. Right, and we have to do it in a way that is affordable as well for us as well, also from an economic point of view, because we don't need to forget the thing that you cannot be too poetic about this thing. So if you want sustainability to grow and the whole movement to grow, that needs to be also economically sustainable. And that's the big challenge, right? Because every time you do something differently or better, or you source locally, right, for example, then that comes at a cost. And that's the big challenge ahead of all of us, that we need to explain why this thing is maybe a little bit more expensive than another one, right? Because, yeah. So otherwise, like, the whole thing will be a nice story, and then it will end up over there. So So that's the thing, and that's the big challenge we ever had. So the not sharing the knowledge, telling people why, and I think like Ruud also mentioned this at some stage. So we need to inform people, and we can do that like through salespeople, like by going out there and talking singularly to all people. But that's not going to be enough. So there will be like there is a large audience we need to reach out to, and we cannot do that alone.
And so actually, in that kind of vein, you do measure the carbon footprint of your products.
Yeah, yes, we do. I mean, like, yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, because I don't know how to quantify that to a consumer.
Yeah.
And that's something that's obviously with the 2030 calendar as well, like it's becoming more valuable. We need to be informing consumers so that they can make the right choices that we're offering them. But how do you inform someone of the carbon footprint? How do you help quantify it?
Yeah. Well, maybe if I can reformulate that question, saying that like what we think is really important, and somebody mentioned that as well, is to kind of like reach out and try to be as transparent as possible in the things you do. So personally, I've got like love and hate relationships, for example, to certifications. Yeah, so a couple of years ago, like a little bit more than that, but like we tried to switch over from compliance, like to having a certification red light or green light kind of thing. To Epd Labels, for example. So these labels that like they are declarations where you actually, it's like an identity card of the product, right? So you know how much carbon footprint that chair has, or like the waste, the materials, everything. There is a lot of data in there. Obviously, the problem that we have is that we need to explain this thing to people, right? Because, yeah, it's a huge problem. Yeah, sure, but that's pretty much what it is. I mean, like you get a value. What we need to invest our time and efforts in is to explain to end clients, architects, the indie community in general, how to handle this data, right? And what to do with that, how to compare things. But if you think about it, then if you've got one number, you can compare two products by one number, which has been like produced in the same way. So that's more or less the idea. Obviously, certifications are very well and very good thing in a way because and that's where it is. I'm not too much interested into the certification itself, but the process that lies behind it. So when we started in 2005, we didn't have a clue, right? So, I mean, we want to do something, but we don't know how, right? How do we do that? So certifications help you because they tell you what you should be doing to get to a good level. For example, ARPA is GECA certified. GECA is a specific certification for Australia. It only is valid in Australia. I mean, like we sell very well in Australia, but not as much as in Germany, for example. So why GECA? Well, that used to be back then. It was the highest standard you could get. So the highest bar at all.
The toughest badge to get.
Correct, right? So if you get there, then you had really, you could actually pass all the other certifications, right? So what we try to do is to learn out of that process, right? In order to, and try to implement as much as possible. I mean, we finally, like, we got a GECA, right? But that's not the point, that's beside it. It's how you get there, right? It's the trip is the goal, right?
Right, because who is it for? I mean, it can be for you, that makes sense, but does the consumer care?
More and more. I think it is a process. It is a process. So now they still ask you about certifications, right? So you go out and you pull out your EPD and say like, look, good, or it's not good, but this is all the data, and they say like, oh, well, okay, but are you Green Card certified? Right? Or are you whatever certified? And they go like, well, this is telling you more than that. So that's a little bit the problem. Also because like from the point of view of a company, you've got so many standards now out there that you will never be able to comply to all of these. I mean, apart from the time and the willingness, it also comes at a cost. So which one do you pick? Do you pick the Swedish one, the Norwegian one, the German one, the Swiss one? Which one do you pick? So being like transparent throughout and getting like one data which is valid for everybody, then obviously kind of like solves the problem a little bit.
I like what you said about, because this problem with the certifications has come to my attention over the past couple of days. I didn't know what EPD was. But but I like what you say that you have to use it as a roadmap, because if you don't know where to go, then it's also helpful to have some kind of guiding way. And what kind of other, let's say, safety barriers do you think are necessary for you? What else do you use as a safety barrier? A more of a path, a roadmap.
A roadmap, yeah. So, for example, Harper has been now. So we got like an Epd process certification, which is even worse. It's the worst of the worst, right? So what I mean is, correct. No, it's just a certification about the process itself rather than certification. So what I mean by that is that, yeah, this certificate the way that you gather data in order to produce a certification. So it's kind of like they're certifying your process, not your product.
Which also needs to happen, because without it,
yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about.
But that's what is useful then for me as a producer again, because now I know that the process, which is what I'm really interested in rather than certification, is the right one, and they are watching over me so that I keep that process, in place all the time. So that's something very interesting for me, right? Because I'm constantly monitored on the things that I think are more important. So that makes sense to me.
And how do you see it sort of cross-company, because you cross-discipline rather, because you sort of knee deep in it anyway. Now, how do you feel like Arthur's learning from other companies? Is there, this kind of intermingling of learning from one another, which is part of the reason why we're all here? Do you feel like there's this kind of culture or not really?
Yes, pretty much. If we're talking about sustainability, yes, 100%. So what do you manage here? And I'm coming from sales, right? So the problem with sales is that you'll never really share your information with your competitor, right? So you say, well, it's gone good, it's gone less good, right, that thing, but you'll never really tell a number, right? What is happening on this field in sustainability in general, or like, environmental friendliness or something like this, is exactly what also Cecilia and Anna were talking before, or, the example is perfect, right? So we are young. We are a young movement, and we need to learn from each other. So we are friends, we are not competitors suddenly, right? So it's not about like selling that chair or that armchair. It's about like what do you do? How do you cope with this problem, or what do you do in this case? And then there is a lot of like sharing of experiences, which I think is the only. We have no rules. We just have experience at the moment, yeah, that we can share.
Because there aren't really any rules apart from these certifications and kind of trying to do the good thing or the right thing, right, which is problematic. I just wanted to jump in and ask if anyone has any questions. No. And also, I mean, in that kind of similar vein, because the like luxury furniture, all sort of like all Italian brands, and I think probably all German brands too, it's hard to be punched in the face by all of this requirement for sustainability when they've been producing since the 60s. So how do you think that it's being...
Yeah. So they are not demons, right? It's not, so like, what I'm trying to say is that we need to go into this all together. Right, and that's the same thing that you do with your suppliers as well, right? So many times you think about like sustainability in terms of environmental sustainability, but you have a social part as well, which is really very important as well, right? So when I'm looking back to my suppliers, and some of them they should get better, right? But I'm never, leave them out of my producing process, because, we need to take them on board. That's the only way that we have to make this thing spread so that everybody really understands the value of it, right? So it's this process. And the same happens also with competitors, right? That where the product is focused on some materials which are more aggressive. I'm thinking about like upholstery, right? And all these things. So we still need sofas, to sit on, and we want to have them. But we can work together to make that like more compliant, if you want, to what we need to do. Yeah.
And so sort of, wrapping up before we jump into, or open the floor, I guess, I wonder what you feel like is the biggest challenge facing you right now in this realm?
Well, I tend to reiterate, or maybe to repeat myself, but the knowledge of the people that we encounter every day is still actually too low, right? So we need to invest a lot in sharing information, and that information needs to be understandable as well. So if we go out and talk lingo to people, at some stage they'll say, "Oh wow, cool," and then by the time you get out of the room, then they forgot everything, right? So, but still, we need to scale up information and knowledge in a way that we reach out to everybody, because I can physically go to I don't know how many people in a year, right, and talk to how many people in a year, but that's still not enough. I mean, like, there are plenty of people out there that need to learn from these processes. So all these things like designers, producers, talks, anything helps to reach out to as many people as possible. And that's, I think, the biggest problem we're facing now. Because if at some stage the people out there, the end user, the client of my client, asks for this thing and says like, look, this is what I want, then the whole thing will start running, right?
Is it actually at the end of the day, like you said, you're producing as a business as well. And I also appreciate that you say that you feel like it's your responsibility. And then I think Charlotte was saying that, and Ruud, in this conversation, you were saying that it's design's responsibility, and then it's also the responsibility of educators. So it really does feel like we're in it together, which I think is a really nice moment to thank Andrea for the talk with a round of applause.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll start. I was wondering, my leg fell asleep. Let's see here. Because I did actually prepare. Actually, it's funny, Ruud, that you were saying that about education and the designer sort of like thinking that they're quite important, because it's this, I mean, I studied at design academy, it was always a joke, like, the designer has to save the world. Turns out it's true, which is terrible. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to prepare different notes next time, so I'm not such a mess. Who's got the mics? Hands up. Okay, Andrea's got a mic. Oh, Charlie, you have a question?
No, I have perhaps someone who has an answer.
I have a question for you, yes. So Charlie, actually, you can maybe give an intro to your master's thesis, but Charlie is actually also an expert, and in your master's thesis, really asleep, guys. In your master's thesis, you look at the way that I'm going to simplify it and bastardize it is to say that through quarrying natural resources and then eliminating waste into those, let's say, the same quarries, we're sort of remaking the landscape, which I thought was a really kind of beautiful image, or, you know what I mean? And you touched upon this differentiation that we've touched upon a bit today between sort of virgin materials and matter versus materials. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about why you think that distinction is so relevant and whether or not we should, start using it again.
Thank you, Emma. Yes, I actually wrote my master thesis 2 years ago on how we could revisit our view on secondhand materials and demolition waste, and how we could maybe not see them so much as a material, well, the industrialized view on matter, but perhaps return to the view on them as matter itself, as a raw material that we take away, not from beforehand natural landscape, but that we recover from a man-made urban landscape and reuse. Because I think the view on material as a form of matter opens up a whole new scape of possibilities for them. And this is something that I feel I have very much in common with Dominik as well, and that's why I was very excited to have him in the in the panel as well. Yeah, but
So just to jump in as well, I also like that because of this differentiation, or rather you saying that because we call the materials this natural matter, we feel quite entitled to them as well, rather than it being something that we have to then process. That's something completely different.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, material is something that is industrial and that can become waste. Matter, on the other hand, is something natural. You know, if we look at something like clay, for instance, it doesn't become waste. clay is always fresh, is always new, but material becomes an object is used once, and then it becomes waste in, you know, a very kind of actual intuitive way of seeing it as we see it now.
No, absolutely. And actually, so this is also kind of a broader question, but I think I'm going to direct it at Ruud because he's been really quiet on that. This is a broader question because I do find it quite interesting, and I think the 2030 calculator and also the WeWantMore, you guys are creating or becoming a resource for other companies. But I'm wondering what's the best resource when it comes to learning about sustainability that you've come across that's really quite inspired your practice?
Oh, I would have to ask my sustainability manager there, I think. I am not... No, I was the one that detected the problem and asked, like, composed a team to actually work on it. Is there a good sources for sustainability? I think there's a lot. I mean, we've used. I would have to check the reference list in the document. I can show it to you if you want. I don't think, to be honest, we didn't find one that was like consolidating all the information that we were looking for, and that is basically also the reason why we want people to download what we've done, because like I said, the report, yeah, because basically we've spent a year and a half, let's say a year, gathering reports, reading them, taking information out of them, taking the useful bits and combine it in the survey we did and then the study. So if you would ask me, okay, which document did you find most useful? I think it's a very hard question to answer, and that's also why we are just putting this study open for download, because if other studios want to do the same effort, it might be scary to start, and this way there's already like some kind of a conclusion. I know it's not really an answer to your question, but yeah.
Actually, so I think the team. I think the team trying to bridge this gap, fill this little pocket as a resource. The team from the 2030 calculator, Sean, Alexandra, who've been here very quietly all day, and we met today, and I learned a little bit more about what you do, and I was wondering if you would tell the class.
What we do. Yes. We have a platform we've developed now that basically aims to simplify a life cycle assessment of products. So we want to make the ability to do life cycle assessments of products available to everyone, so you don't have to be an environmental scientist to be able to figure out how to do it. So it's based on a database of impact factors that we've put together, everything from material impact factors to processes and transportation, energy use, and geographies. I mean, we have it all in our database, and so as a manufacturer of a product, you can enter the different variables that, you know, it's all based on weight of material used, and then get at the moment, a CO2 carbon footprint of your product. And we are working on extending that into adding circularity scores based on the reusability of materials, but also the amount of effort that needs to be put into reusing the material. So we want to come up with a score to add to that, so you'll have both carbon emissions and circularity scores, and we'll probably add some other factors as well as, you know, water. But the main thing about this is we wanted to create a platform that is comparable across product categories, so that you have a standard that allows you to start moving towards being able to compare and have some sort of relative understanding of what this means compared to another product in another category, which isn't the case today, because life cycle assessments, if you get, you know, multiple people doing an assessment of the same product, you're going to get as many scores as the people that are doing the assessment. So that's the main goal, is to move towards a standard methodology and using standard data as a starting point.
Also, I mean, for 4 companies, I imagine, because I tried to use the calculator, but it turns out I didn't have all the input on my sneakers. But so it's 4 companies, but I guess ultimately will also be 4 consumers, like we talked with Andrea, to sort of...
Right, and designers as well. I mean, we're extending it upstream as well so that you can start working with fibers and creating your own blends and seeing what the impact is before you finish a design of a product.
No, I mean, absolutely. Oh, to streamline, like you said.
Exactly.
Are there any questions for Sean? So how are we all feeling? Are we feeling good? Because we're all very quiet, very suspicious, like we're doing something wrong.
Maybe we can share a few questions among...
Sure, go ahead.
the audience.
How about, would you like, actually no, I learned earlier. I'm not giving away my mic. Thank you. You guys, please feel free to kind of sneak on in.
Yeah, I think we should really use this launch which we have gathered in this wonderful lounge, and I think let's play a little bit this question and answer game as you do, Emma. I was I was intrigued, and I also felt a lot with the approach you have. And the thing is that sustainability is not just this. It doesn't start with fun. It starts with responsibility. It starts with then considering that it's super complex. You know, and then how to tackle this complexity when you sat on the podium and, okay, when it goes to certification of our process, then, yeah, how does this comply in the EU? Complex enough, you know, but then you export to America, and then maybe you export to Russia, and then export to China, and maybe you get components from China. So, I mean, how can you follow that up? And my question is maybe also to Martin, who joined us, who is professor at the University of Ostwestfalen, very close to the furniture industry, working with the furniture industry. So how does German furniture industry, or how can you from university help to get, let's say, certifications going, or even standards, how to evaluate sustainable impact on products or on product development? So is there a base on that? Do you take the lead on norms and DIN norms, or I mean, or also, as Andrea said, can competitors share knowledge? You know, how is this from your perspective?
I say it in German, but my English, okay. Nein, es gibt keine Normen bislang. Es gibt Normen, um CO2-Äquivalente zu berechnen. Und wenn wir das mit Holz machen, dann gewinnen wir immer, weil Holz im Wachstum so viel CO2 speichert, dass ein Produkt ökologischer ist, wenn ich mehr Holz reinpacke. Und das ist komplett widersinnig.
Übersetzung. There were actually no norms because, what was it, CO2 is...
Äquivalent, CO2-Äquivalente. Du hast einen Vortrag dadurch, dass Holz so viel CO2 im Wachstum speichert. Und je mehr Holz du reinpackst, desto ökologischer ist das nach geltenden Berechnungsnormen. Und das ist Schwachsinn.
So wood saves or contains and keeps CO2, and the more wood you use, actually the more you go, you know, on a plus on the budget. So as simple as that, so far.
Ja, also da fehlt es an vernünftigen Berechnungsmethoden, aber ich glaube, dass das gar nicht entscheidend ist dafür, dass sich was verändert. Ich muss mal auch auf die Gefahr, dass ich jetzt gesteinigt werde. Wir sind
not be petrified, no worries.
Okay. Wir sind hier in der Blase. In der Blase, wunderschön. Bubble, ja. Aber das macht so viel aus. So viel kann ich die Finger gar nicht zusammendrücken, wie viele Möbel Firmen dieser Art und Weise auf den Markt werfen. Ich würde behaupten, alle Firmen zusammen produzieren pro Jahr weniger Möbel als Nobilia am Tag. So, wenn wir was verändern wollen, dann müssen wir für diese Mengen die Dinge auch verändern. Die anderen, für die anderen auch. Aber wir müssen für die Mengen was verändern.
Yeah, what Martin says is actually in the end, or maybe at the beginning, calculation or smart calculation or even certified calculations will not make the big difference. You know, we can talk years and years, and those who work in the industry, there's always calculation, certification, and so on, but that doesn't make the big leap ahead. So what else is it? And I think still, even if we sit here, as Martin says, in this design bubble, in a way, I mean, the question is, how can we bring this, also what we discussed on the podium, how can we bring this to a majority, to industry, you know, to find partners, as you say, how can our competitors become partners? And Martin also says, like, how can we reach a production volume or even a sheer volume of CO2 emission or whatever in order to reach an equivalent of Nobilia, for example, who sell, I think, per day, how many kitchen?
2,000 per day.
2,000 kitchen per day. Andrea, what do you think?
There are two ways out of this, and I said in English. I have in mind the example of Interface. Interface was a $2 billion company, $2 billion turnover every year, right? And this guy read a book, and then from that time, he managed, I think like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, to turn into 100% circular. So either you come from above, and somebody says like, this is going to happen now, which probably will not be the case of Mobilia, right? Or else this comes from the other side, from the end client. The end client comes in and says like, well, you know, I need to buy a kitchen from you, but can you tell me a little bit more about that kitchen? And that's where probably we, the whole bunch here in the bubble, can contribute to, right? To try to, what I was saying before, to try to teach people out there, the end client, through these guys here, through our own key accounts, through like e-commerce, through whatever like, you know, anything that reaches out to the end client to teach him or her which questions to ask. That's the only thing we can do, I think.
Ja, die Fragen muss man sich überhaupt erstmal leisten können, etwas mehr über seine Küche oder so erfahren zu wollen. Die meisten Teile unserer Bevölkerung, die interessiert nur, kann ich mir das überhaupt leisten? Also da spielt nur der Preis eine Rolle. Punkt. Ich mache das lang genug, ich bin da extrem desillusioniert.
I think basically it's about the price. How can people, majority of people afford that? And I think it's a great discussion to share also experience or thoughts. Cecilia, what's your point?
No, I actually totally agree with Andrea. I think I don't think you can scale it up and think that you can have this huge approach. You have to take it down. And even if you refer to a bubble, it's better to start in the bubble than not start at all. And I think that it's so many questions we wanted to highlight here today, being the transition, a snapshot of where we actually are, and highlighting the fact that industry, manufacturers and researchers need to collaborate. The middleman is an important man. And just the fact what Ruud did after the dinner we had in Stockholm, went home, categorized his whole library. I've been to so many lectures in Europe talking to architects who said, it's so difficult, I can't know what to do. I have my client breathing down my neck and it's all about billing hours. I can't afford to try to find a more sustainable material. Well, if everybody doing like Ruud is doing, or actually like Charlotte is doing, sharing the knowledge, we will get much further that direction. And further, if we actually give something more transparent, like a number on something. If I tell you I have 5% fat milk in my fridge, you will tell me back, that's pretty fat milk. How did you know that? Well, that's because you started to measure milk back in the day. So I would say that 0.5% milk is quite healthy. Well, I want to say healthy for next summer, right? The bikini time. So I'll go for the 0.5. Or do you want to go for the 5? You know, there's an equivalent, there's a context. And I think that the end consumer is missing that context. I've been calling the researchers many times, like Charlotte and I have been in this conversation. And even the head of research at IVL, the Swedish Research Institute, said, I've been in this business for 20 years, it's a jungle out there. Okay, so if she thinks it's a jungle out there, what should we think? And what should the end consumer think? So just by doing this that we do today, put a snapshot of where we are, highlight the fact that there are architects like designers like Emma that do the process reverse, learn from that experience, learn that there's numbers to get out there, that there are people that other companies started already 2005 and try to go, you know, make their way in the jungle. I mean, for Emeco, we've been hammering this in the head of people for since ages ago. We started already collecting waste in 1944, but I think it's already now when it's getting exciting. Now we're in, you know, we're in a tribe. So now we're getting out there and getting the message through, and we should be helping each other. This is why we're here. So I agree. Okay, it's complex. I know it. I heard it before, but you know, we're never going to give up. We're going to take the baby steps and see where we're going.
It's exciting, but also critical. Yeah. I think we had a question. Would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Unter. I'm industrial designer and I'm teaching
Handcraft? What is it?
Craftsmen and planners in case of statics, color, and
Maybe I can also get Martin to translate again.
Speak in the micro, then we get it solved. Nochmal bitte?
Barrierefreie Planung.
How's your German, Martin?
Okay, explain it, don't worry.
It's about accessibility. And what I love is, I've always felt like I am some kind of, I'm the speak of the people who use it as a designer. And what I like very much now is that I feel like the circle is round now, because we have accessibility, we have color, we have aesthetics, and now we also have all kind of natural devices, natural ecosystems. So it's a very, very complex, but for me a very round and a very good thing to do good for people and to do good for the nature. And what I feel is that we talk now very much about scaling, about numbers, about responsibility, about very complex things. What is true? And what I'm missing, and what I feel is the most important thing now to do, is the question of how do we really get to bring fun and joy in this kind of movement, in this kind of everyday life. And I am I do very much work in my little town about climate. I'm climate activist, in fact, since 2 years, and we're a group of people. We are very, very busy in bringing together people, bringing together politics, bringing together government of the very low scale, 30,000 people town. And what I feel is the most important and the most difficult thing is that people have some kind of aesthetics. For example, I live in a very in a town which is very classic, very old-fashioned, that's it. So there are very old-fashioned ways traditional, yes, very old-fashioned and traditional way of deciding. For example, the most important thing is that there's some kind of order. The very, very important thing is that everything must be in perfect order. And when you go through the gardens, everything must be in perfect order. So there's no tree which looks like a tree, but the trees are all cut in some kind of scale. And typically in some kind of quarter or in some kind of triangle, whatever. And I feel that for as long as people don't change how they look at design, how they look at everyday life, how they look at if the garden is nice, as long as they feel like a tree must look like a triangle, or a tree must look like a quarter. As long as they measure that this is right, as long as we don't achieve or we don't arrive at really doing ecosystem work. And I feel really that we as a designer must find some kind of way to bring joy and the feeling of I am right to those people. And in fact, I don't know why, and I don't know how. I know why, but I don't know how. But I feel that we designers must really look and create some kind of concept and some kind of new way of aesthetic. And that's what I want to ask you, if you have any idea.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to link that quickly to Ruud, because I already got my time. I see you, Sean. Oh no, I'll put it down. But what I wanted to bring is, because you're talking about the element of aesthetics, which I think is true, and the element of fun, which it's design, it's meant to be fun, it's meant to be aesthetic, it's meant to, I don't know, go against taste or go with taste. I agree, and I think that's very valuable. And then that's why what you guys are doing is really interesting, because it is visual. You can say, okay, here are my choices. They're all kind of within the realm of my choices. Let's say, I don't know, 5 different types of tile. And then you can say, okay, this is what I ordinarily choose from, but this one's what you want, and this one's a good one. I think that's why, that's kind of where the crossover of both aesthetics and this ecological element that's really relevant intersect. Wouldn't you say?
Thank you, Emma. No, I think that's what design is about. We have to stop thinking that you have to use such and such material and this piece of furniture in order to make a good design. I agree that if you have a design in mind, you made with a selection of materials, you didn't think of the sustainability of these materials. And then you have to start changing that design to make it more sustainable or less costly in a way. Then it becomes difficult to, as a designer, still be very proud and happy with your design, because you're basically like, yeah, cutting corners and so I agree with that. But if you from the start know, like, this is my selection of materials that are not that much more expensive, and they actually very beautiful. Might be a different set than the set you're used to work with like 2 years ago, but it's a very good set. You can create really beautiful and even new looking design with. So I don't think there is that problem of aesthetics versus sustainability anymore. And to come back to your comment, I don't think there is. Okay, there still is the issue of cost and sustainability, but it's getting less and less a problem. And I also think that if you look at the curve of adoption, we are in the stage of early adoption still, and that means that still 90% to 80%. Will think like, yeah, but it's going to be more expensive, so I'm not going to pay for it, because I mean, I'd rather pay less, and then, oh, I'm sorry, it's not sustainable. But that was exactly the thinking that started us doing the project that we did, because we were thinking like that as well, and the client was thinking like that as well. But I think we need a couple of early adapters and industry leaders that develop more materials, develop more solutions in order to reduce the problem of cost versus sustainability. And a lot of companies are actually really doing it. So I think give it a few more years, and the amount of materials and options we can work with, sustainable options that are not more expensive and that not less good looking, will only get more. There will be plenty of choice, but it's the early adopters and industry leaders' role, and I think there's lots of them here to actually make that happen, and that's actually what's happening. And I don't think we're talking about it, because I think the people sitting here we're talking about things we're actually doing. And that's a big, we're sharing our experiences. And I think, and also, I showed in the masterclass, I showed the graph of what sustainability means for different age groups. And I really strongly believe that the really young generation now, they will have a refound love for in the right sense of the word sustainable products, like products that last very long, and they will start repairing again. And so I'm quite positive about it. And of course now we're still in this 80% people that say, oh yeah, it's too expensive. It's never gonna. We still have to work with mud and horsehair, let's say. And but actually, it's not true, and we need to keep on doing what we're doing. And I think now we're actually, if you look at the curve of adoption, yeah, it's the Gauss curve. Huh? So it goes like this, and then it goes like this again. But we're here now, so it seems to go very slow. But then exponentially, it picks up. And I think in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years' time, we're going to start picking up, and then it goes exponentially, and then it will go very fast. So I'm quite positive about that.
In that realm, I think that as we wrap up, I think that we have 2 eager mics over here and 1 over here, but I was... give me 1 second. So what I wanted to maybe do as we kind of wrap up is when you do have a mic, it would be great if you also ended up on such a positive note, because I really think there is a lot to be enthusiastic and positive about. So as Martin suggested, also to finish on a positive kick at you. One of these? And then you guys.
Okay. Ich denke, das geht zu langsam. Wir können uns das nicht mehr leisten. Und deswegen, wir akzeptieren ja sonst auch Regeln. Wir bleiben alle vor der roten Ampel stehen. So, wir brauchen Regeln. Und dann werden wir das viel schneller schaffen können. So, und diese Regeln müssen jetzt aber kommen. Und diesen politischen Druck, den müssen wir erzeugen. Wenn wir auf die Adaptionskurve warten, forget it. Das geht viel zu langsam. Wir müssen Regeln verändern. Und dabei bin ich nicht für Verbote, aber wir müssten das, was ökologisch ist, extrem pushen. Wir pushen die Automobilindustrie immer und immer wieder mit Milliardenbeträgen, damit die alte Technik verkaufen oder das nachholen, was sie versäumt haben. Wir müssen dieses Geld nutzen, um anders zu wirtschaften. Und wir müssen die...
So the other Martin says, actually, we can do this, you know. Martin says, okay, we might wait for the right angle, so to say, but Martin says this will not come as such. It's not a voluntary work any longer. There have to be rules that have to be set up. As most of us in Europe, we respect the red lights. So there need to be norms, there needs to be politicians in action, and I mean we're all involved in politics, and we should raise this pressure to make this radical change that is needed. I mean that's basically it's not a sense of the volunteers or the industry leaders. I mean you know this thing as well. Norms have to be set up, and you know we need guidelines. We need Leitplanken, as we say in Germany. Because, you know, if you ask only for the industry, and Martin was mentioning the German car industry, if you wait until they turn green by themselves, well, we have waited 30 years for the electric car, and so that's my summary. Sorry.
Should we jump over to the
Yeah, I think, Dominik, I share a bit. I'm going to be on his half. I think, first of all, I never had as fun in this industry as I have now, just on that note of having fun. I think this is the fun. To do this, what we're doing now, now something is happening actually. And I think that, yes, I agree, there will be legislation, but we also have a social sustainability responsibility for work, for people that has a family business that maybe it's locked up into one specific system with one technology. And if we just pull the plug and make a new rule or a new legislation, you will cut them out. So what we're trying now is actually to make them understand they need to change. And there will be, I think, both ways. There will be legislation, and that will come, but also it's so important to give heads up and try to make them change before the trains leaves the station. But on the note of this, I really want to jump on this village, the classical village with 30,000 inhabitants. I thought that was great with all these cut trees. I have to come and see those trees, by the way. But I think that speaking about Emeco, our company, what we've been challenged with is that I think the whole shift of material and acknowledging material has to change. And your thesis, Charlie, was really interesting because I've been standing for ages and talking about aniline leather, and it's natural leather, and it's a mosquito bite in the neck, and that's what you pay for. It's authentic stuff. And all of a sudden they say, oh, so you deal with waste material. Well, that's disgusting. No, that's the real stuff. So the shift, getting the mosquito bite in the back of the neck, the real stuff, that has to shift. That excellence in a material has to be viewed in the same way as you reinvent or rework PET bottles or whatever you do. It is a new shift, a new view of material. It should be the new luxury, actually, that you use these materials, and that's the mosquito bite. It's much tougher to work with recycled material, and this is what we're working on. So your neighbors, I want to challenge you, go out and just save one of the trees in your town and have respect for what it is. It is a tree, it's not a cone, and see if the analogy of respecting materials, see if what happens in the municipality in your place when the actually tree grows into a real tree, and respect and understand what kind of material you work with. I think, on that note, I would say that this is the most fun we're going to have. We're going to have fun. We love each other. This is great, right? So, yeah. So Martin, you have to join the team. That's why, Yeah. And then there'll be some legislation on the side, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Dominik, do you want to jump in? Because what Cecilia is saying is really linked to what we had a discussion about as well.
Yes, yeah.
You've been holding the mic so long.
I just wanted to also add some comments regarding the price, and we also have a lot like carbon footprint and so on. And so it's always about the choices of us consumers in the end. But there's, as she's heading in Germany the Branche for Future movement, she said actually the consumer is at the end of the efficiency chain. So we often don't have the choice of really choosing between a sustainable and non-sustainable material. So I think that the pressure has to come from the top, and there's where we can also make change. And the legislation is, I think, also a good example. And there's I think, some excitement. Also, legislation can be exciting. There is some excitement coming. So the taxonomy for sustainable finance from the European Union. You can discuss if that is enough or not, but basically this is like a legislation which is directed to the financial market. And so when manufacturers are creating a new plant, they're not getting that out of their pocket, the money for that, but they have to go to the financial market and they have to take money for that. And now this taxonomy is saying okay, you only get the money if you fulfill these requirements for sustainable finance. And if not, good luck to get somewhere the money, but you're not getting from the financial market anymore. And I think that is a good incentive, because now the manufacturers have to think, I can't create a new plant in a way I did it in the past. I have to now think about how can I do it in a sustainable way. And I think this is the pressure we need, because now the established large players are really thinking about that. And to share it from Concular's perspective is that we see now this legislation came into place 3-4 months ago, and now companies who are not really famous for the sustainability, they're coming to us and they're saying we cannot only talk about it, we have to do something, can you support us on that? And I think that's the right way now, and I think there's more and more coming. I think there must be even more pressure and there must be more ambitious plans, but to end it positive, I think it's going in the right direction. It's too slow, but it's going in the right direction.
Sorry, I ran away to see if I could include Anna, because the digital participants count too. Sorry, I was.
I just wanted to add to that it's really about consumption in the end, and whatever our role is, we're all consumers as well. And we can do incremental changes with materials and stuff, but in the end, it comes down to, do you really need that extra pair of sneakers, or do you need to take that flight? That's where the big change is going to come, and that's the responsibility. I mean, we just have to, all of us have to think about, do we really need to consume the volumes that we do in the end? And, that kind of goes against making products and selling products, but that's where the big impact change is going to come, is changing our behavior, because we're over-consuming everyone. Sorry.
Oh, so you're holding a mic. You seem quite eager. I was wondering if you could introduce yourself before you share your comment.
Well, I'm a visitor here today.
Welcome.
Sweden as well.
Hello.
Yeah.
You're among some company of your fellow countrymen and women. You're in a Swedish company also.
No,
We
I'm
have some.
actually in a Norwegian company, but I have been more or less working with more or less everyone here.
Oh, okay, so you all know each other.
No, well, a lot of them. But what I was thinking about with listening to this very interesting day is that we have one thing in Sweden which I think works very good, and that is Pantamera. I don't know how to translate it, but it's a message that goes out daily, and I think we are top of the class in returning plastic, glass, aluminium.
Fund.
In
In German, fund. I don't know what it's. Yeah, I don't know what it's called in English, but when you return the bottles for a nominal fee.
Yeah, and we, I think we are absolutely on the top list of. So, but this is spread in such a nice way that the end consumer understands it, and that's the key thing, I think, to make the end consumer to understand why they should go for this, is that they know that, I mean, Emeco is a perfect example with a Coca-Cola share. That you buy this share and you know it's 111 bottles that it's produced from. So that is something you can relate to. So that's, so you should look on the commercial Pantamera. That's a good advice.
Yeah. But that's what's interesting, that you say that the consumer understands it, but they understand it because they get some money back. Because this goes back to what we were saying as well, that it is going to be a financial incentive.
No,
and somehow it is.
It's not really the money, because if you walk around in the fancy Östermalm in Stockholm.
They're all over the place?
No. You see the very well-dressed gentleman and old woman with their plastic bottle.
Yeah, but that's because they are clever enough to know that they're not
But it goes in the return.
I think it's, I mean, because they're not living in Östermalm because they're throwing away 50 cents at a time, right, as well?
No, but I mean, we are as good in returning this independently if you are a billionaire or a poor guy. It's built in a way that's amazing.
Andrea is saying it's a cultural thing. While I have the mic, I think Anna wanted to join something. Also, welcome. You're welcome to stay. You're our guest. I think Anna wanted to join and add something on the screen. I don't know if everyone can see the screen, but we'll be able to hear her. Hi, Anna.
Hey,
Are you still
sorry.
keeping it simple?
Yeah, at least I'm trying. And I think actually that's a good thing to start doing, to not building up huge mountain that we will try to climb, but to identify what is actually reachable, what is possible for us to start doing. And I want to highlight the importance that I think it's each company's responsibility, and it's actually each person's responsibility to make sure that, first of all, we set clear goals and visions, because without a goal of understanding like what we want to reach, it's very difficult to make an improvement. And then from there, that we set a strategy, identify the activities that will also develop into us, or to make us reach that goal and vision. And to make things measurable, that Cecilia and I are constantly talking about, is a way of showing people that things are actually improving. And if people cannot see that, then it's very difficult to make them onboarded to the training into the right direction, so to say. So I think I can share what we are doing right now, because we don't really have a problem with the mindset of our designers. They are 100% into understanding and also working according to circular design. But what we do today is actually, first of all, identify what we have, what can be reused. For the first time ever in our 50-year history, we are closing more stores than what we are opening. One store can actually, if we don't handle it in a responsible way, can actually create 100 ton of waste. And now I'm only talking about the loose interior. If you add construction material on top of that, then you have pretty much like 250 ton of potential waste. And to start looking at waste as the future raw material source, and to make sure that zero is going to landfill, and that we really handle things in a responsible way. That is a key. And also I want to mention that I think today a product without a story, without history, is quite uninteresting for people, at least if you talk to the younger generation. But if you have a story to tell about the product, that, for example, how big part of the material that is coming from recycled material feedstocks, or that this product is redesigned, it has earlier been something else, then all of a sudden it becomes interesting.
No, actually, that really links back to what Dominik and Cecilia mentioned earlier. And it also, what you're saying also, it doesn't make me nervous, but we're saying we have to look on the small scale, we have to look on the big scale, we have to look in the medium scale. And I think we all kind of have our work cut out for us, really. But are you hopeful? You sound quite optimistic, actually, and hopeful. I think this is actually, even meetings like this are very hopeful. What do you say, Anna?
Absolutely.
That's what I wanted to hear.
It's still, yeah, absolutely. There's so many things we can do. And I think it's important that we highlight the importance that one small step forward is also a step in the right direction. And we have to start small to be able, and also to get the ball start rolling. If no one, because if you talk to quite many of the more like innovative new material suppliers, they will tell you that it's not lack of sustainable material, but you guys have to start buying it. You have to start using it. And if no one starts, the prices will never, ever go down.
No, absolutely.
So we have to start, and this is where we all have to collaborate, I think. We cannot rely only on the like the big players, because we have an opposite challenge when it comes to, they cannot provide us with volumes enough that we need. So what we are doing now is also the new products, like the few new products that we try to design, because for us, like you heard, it's like crucial to really reuse and redesign what we already have. But with the new design the new products that we have to design to fulfill the design outcome, the expectation. We are a design company. That is what we are standing for. Here we have to now treat each store individually, and that is normally not what we do. We are a volume production company, and that is how we are gaining advantages, both from price and for lead time and also quality. But now we have to rethink everything, because the volumes that can be provided for us when we talk about new innovative material are too small. So I think actually to be a small company sometimes can be easier when it comes to actually get the ball start rolling. So here,
no, carry on.
Yeah, like we as big players here, we collaborate a lot with IKEA, and what we try to do, what we can to push the industries into the right direction and put requirements and expectations on them, and also actually kind of force them to change.
A big takeaway.
When you were talking about chemicals, for example, like here we have been working many years with, I would say it's our chemical restriction list is quite tough. And when we started 15 years ago, we started with the PVC ban. And then the fashion industry was telling us that you guys are crazy. You cannot make raincoats or rain boots for kids without PVC. Today, I don't think it's any fashion company that use PVC for rain boots for kids, for example. So there are things, there are hope, and we can make a change, but we have to collaborate.
No, absolutely. And actually, what big takeaway from today as well is that big companies need to be making little steps or any steps, and then smaller companies can be making bigger steps. And we can be failing in the process, or it doesn't have to be perfect, but just to be making these little steps. It can be in a bubble, it can be too expensive, it can be at a tiny scale, but nonetheless, just steps. Charlie?
Yeah, I think this is something...
Well said.
Yeah, I think this is something really important to tie into. We've been also talking today about the importance of the studies, the education of a designer. We've been talking about the formation of new cultures of how to deal with this, and I think there is a huge connection there. I don't necessarily believe that we study once to be a designer. Actually, we study to be a designer every day. And this is a culture we have to cultivate within the industry, that we don't stop learning when we finish our studies. You know, I finished last year and I still feel like there is so much to learn. And I think I don't want to stop feeling like this. And I think for you guys, it's the same.
Well, I just want to say that after that dinner we had 2 years ago, almost 1.5, where Ruud was attending, and also Emma, calling people up after that dinner. There was like 2 different projects between Snøhetta and 2 researchers. I called one architect in Dubai a couple of weeks ago, and she said, oh, I need to call WeWantMore Studio. I think they're super cool what they're doing. I got your report. I sent Ruud's report back to Dubai. I'm going to call him up because I have a project where it fits perfect. These kind of networks, these kind of connections are not to be underestimated. This is what moves it forward. So I think that's really super important.
I'd like to add to something that, of course, we are speaking a lot of transitioning within the industry, but of course there needs to be a transition in the values we keep in the daily life. So as Anna and a lot of you as well touched upon, it's also because we mentioned the bubble, and the younger generation now, of course, with Fridays for Future, is teaching the whole world how to shift those values. And not to be too critical, but since Anna touched upon the big manufacturer from Sweden with a lot of furniture, and we can't afford another chair, we can't afford another shelf. We need, of course, items that will last longer. And we've heard before, it's not about having stylish things in your home, it's about having implemented values in those objects. And as Anna said, nobody is interested in a nice looking thing when there is no story behind it, and it's just a void, just an empty soul. And you can invent a story, and Instagram is a perfect platform for young people as well to invent those stories, but without a authentic backstory, you will somehow lack of your identity and personality, and you can't buy the next great sexy top or whatever. It won't have a personality. So there it starts too. That's why I'm always very interested when somebody from a big company like H&M is stepping in and have a conversation, because there are a lot of other players as well that we know how they look like, and people go there still, and they are also the young people that don't care where the products come from, and they don't care for who made my shirt. So
sexy top. We
need this conversation within all the generations. I wanted to make this little remark.
No, I'm also really glad. I mean, I'm also, like I said, I'm very hopeful. I love that I got an absolutely from Anna Berglund, and I actually got good news that we can actually continue this conversation at the bar. How does that? How do we feel? I think that. Thank you very much for everyone who participated. I think the round of applause is also for yourselves, because you've made it possible. So thank you very much for everyone who came. Thank you for the Design Post for hosting it. And I look forward to the knowledge that comes next and the next talks, plural. So to the bar.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I'm collecting all mics. Thank you. Pencils down.